On September 7, 1533, at Greenwich Palace, King Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn welcomed their daughter Elizabeth into the world. Although Elizabeth was a beautiful girl and brought joy to her mother, Henry was not happy. Elizabeth was Henry's second daughter with his now second wife. He was first married to Catherine of Aragon, and they had a daughter named Mary. Henry wanted nothing more than a boy, and he would do anything he could to make sure that happened. When King Henry realized that Anne, Elizabeth's mother, could not give him the son he always wanted, he came up with the idea that God was angry at him and was punishing him. He believed this because Anne Boleyn had first married Henry's brother. But Henry had fallen so in love with Anne and her beauty that when his brother died, he made the church annul their marriage. When Anne and Henry's marriage were seeing its last days, Henry met Jane Seymour. He was in love yet again. He was so in love that he pressed false allegations on Anne that stated she had committed treason, adultery, and incest with her own brother George. Anne was shortly after beheaded on May 19, 1536. And King Henry had their marriage declared illegitimate so he could keep his outstanding reputation. Only then to marry Jane on May 30th, just 11 days after his second wife was killed. Around 1 year later, Jane finally fulfilled all of Henry's dreams and gave Henry his first son, Edward. This is what Henry had been hoping and praying for his whole life. Little did he know his dream would shortly perish. Edward lived a hard and short life. He was very sick when he was born and never seemed to get better. When he was at the young age of 9 years old, he was crowned king. Being so young, he was appointed a council to help make proper decisions for the country. He died just 6 years later. When Edward died, his half-sister Mary, daughter of Catherine and Henry, came to power. She was hated by the people and by her half-sister Elizabeth. Her name can easily be recognized as Bloody Mary. If someone were to speak against her authority or make any negative comment about her reign, they would be put to death. If you were a Protestant, or even rumored to be a Protestant, you may have been put to death as well. Because of her harsh reign, many rebellious outbreaks in England began. The most famous was the Wyatt Rebellion. One night, a group of rebels, including Thomas Wyatt, were captured. They were being tortured and questioned about who else was a part of the rebellion. One rebel was so terrified that he named Elizabeth, knowing it would send the guards in the other direction. This flung Mary into what some would say an irrational wrath. It was her mission to find Elizabeth. She believed it was Elizabeth's attempt to steal the throne away from her. She sent out guards to locate Elizabeth. When Elizabeth was captured, she was stunned to hear such absurd news. Becoming queen or stealing the throne was the last thing on Elizabeth's mind. Nonetheless, her confession of this meant nothing to Mary, and she insisted she be sent to the Tower of London, where her mother was sent before her when her father had accused her of false allegations. While being in the Tower, Elizabeth was very underfed and living in harsh conditions. She became very ill. Mary had tried everything to get Elizabeth removed from the line of succession, but Parliament would not allow it. It was only at the request of the Queen's husband, Philip of Spain, that she was released and allowed to return to her childhood home. Philip was aware of the Queen's poor health and wanted to gain the friendship of Elizabeth to gain peace between England and Spain in the event his wife would die and Elizabeth succeed the throne. Elizabeth did finally succeed the throne on November 17, 1558. It was a time of triumph for the woman who had been cast aside and forgotten by her family and people. She had spent a lot of her life in the shadows of her father, half-brother, and half-sister before her. The Queen had only been settled in her new position for a little while, when the marriage proposals came pouring in. But the Queen gave herself to no one. She was sometimes called the Virgin Queen. The closest she ever came to marriage was with a man named Robert Dudley. They both had been imprisoned together in the Tower of London years before. Since Elizabeth didn't marry, there was no heir to her throne. When Elizabeth's sister died, she had left the country in serious economic and religious binds. Elizabeth was determined to turn her country around. Elizabeth re-established the Protestant Church of England. She appointed herself as supreme governor of the Church of England rather than the supreme head that her father had been. She did so to keep Catholics and the people who did not believe a woman could become head of the church happy. Elizabeth loved her people and loved making appearances and talking with them. She once said, "It is not my desire to live or to reign longer than my life, and my reign shall be for your good." Elizabeth had the mind of a political genius and nurtured her country through careful leadership. Elizabeth was a determined woman who listened to the advice of those around her and would change a policy if it was unpopular. In appearance, she was extravagant, in behavior sometimes perky, but her approach to politics was serious, conservative, and cautious. When the beloved Queen died at Richmond Palace on March 24, 1603, England was one of the most powerful and prosperous countries in the world.